Hi everybody, we're here with our last crop update of the 2019 season. We're wrapping up this year, so we kind of wanted to take a look back at what 2019, the challenges, and the great things it did bring us throughout the year, more challenges than anything. So starting out with the planting season, Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it didn't look like we were going to get anything planted. It kept raining, and we were probably on average 30 days behind schedule. And that just kind of kept going all year. So we were 30 days behind schedule on emergence, 30 days behind schedule on pollination, and we're obviously late on harvest and wet. But we finally got the crop in. I think the majority of the crop, and I don't know, Seth, if you have any numbers on this or not, but was planted, the majority of it was planted that first week in June.
It was. I mean, the 1st of June there was a ton of corn that was put in the ground here in the Midwest for sure. Our part of the Midwest, I guess, the eastern part of the U.S. There was some that did not get in the prevent plant side of things. I mean, we saw those numbers from the USDA, FSA, excuse me, that did come through the USDA as well. But I mean,
A factor of 10, right?
Yeah.
Than normal.
I mean, much more than what the normal is, and a record for sure at the 19.4, roughly 1 million acres of prevent plant compared to what you would consider 5 to probably be average, and last year was closer to 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, definitely significant in terms of the acres that didn't get planted just based off the spring that we had. So.
I know I put a lot of plots in this year, the first week in June, and was considering not even doing any plot work this year because I didn't know how these results would be, but it actually turned out to be pretty good, kind of making lemonade out of lemons almost.
Yeah.
We saw some great results this year with our starters.
Those starter fertilizers, even though it was late, a lot of people were kind of hesitant on applying them. Why do I want to put any of that in? The ground's already warm, but in reality, those acres that had the starter applied got up to 8 bushel per acre advantage compared to those that didn't get it.
And this was June. This was
in
June planting. So a lot of people were saying, don't need starter fertilizer in June, and that is totally wrong. We're wanting to get that crop out of the ground very fast, and that's one of the 3 points that starter does for you. It gets it out of the ground fast, it will pollinate sooner, and a quicker dry down. And we saw that this year.
And especially in a late planted year,
Yes.
where we really want to hurry up that process, it really proved to benefit that crop.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave that immediately available phosphorus source. Instead of having to wait for it to break down and become available, there were just a plethora of benefits.
7
for
to 10
applying
days earlier pollination we saw with the pitchers.
Yeah. And then also going back to Seth, those prevent plant acres. So obviously nothing was planted on those, but looking into those into 2020 as well as looking back into 2019, building back that soil health.
Yes.
So we want to really apply those humics and those fulvics to help build that soil back up, boost that microbial activity, and really prepare that for the 2020 growing season as we finish out 2019.
Pelletized lime.
Yep.
Pelletized gypsum, also a good one to put on right now on those prevent plant acres to get that all ready for next year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great, like you said, building back on that. We saw some great results on side dressing also with our Ultramate LQ in 28, protected that nitrogen. A lot more 28 was put on this year because of no time to put anhydrous on. I've had a lot of guys that kind of resisted Ultramate in the 28 in years past, did it out of necessity this year, said, oh my goodness, we're seeing just as good as results with 28 as anhydrous, which is normally not so much because 28 or UAN can leave the system faster. But if you protect that with a carbon source like Ultramate LQ, you can see just as good of results with 28.
Yeah. That carbon it'll carbon chelate that nitrogen and keep it in an available form for that plant, so it won't volatilize or leach out of the profile.
Yeah, and the stress has continued through the year with the excessive rains that we had, and then it turned off dry, and so sometimes that dry spell can actually increase fungal activity out there. Early wet, dry late. You can see a lot of fungal activity out on those crops. We applied fungicide with our foliar overpass products and had wonderful results.
Yep, we alleviated a lot of that stress with supplementing that nutrition. When that crop is in a stressful situation, it's going to focus its energy on combating that stress, not so much the growth. So it's not going to scavenge for those nutrients as much, but just giving it to them and spoon feeding them that, it really helps that plant focus its energy on overcoming the stress by providing it the nutrients it needs, and then it will help carry it through that growing season and then maximize.
And we had some new products
that
too.
yield.
That Molly B worked extremely well.
The Easy Molly B.
Yes, they're at reproductive stage.
Yep, talk about spoon feeding. That's the
Yes.
molybdenum and the boron, which in any somewhat large amounts is very toxic to the plant, will cause burn, very detrimental. So that Easy Molly B applies it in very safe amounts and gives it exactly what it needs at that time.
At the right time, that's correct. And then we came to harvest, kind of a late harvest again. We're 30 days behind. We saw a great difference between where the starters were applied and where the starters were not applied. I think it was 2 to 3 points difference on our trials. That's money in the bank.
Absolutely.
That's money in the bank. Better
I'm sure
quality.
it came off drier and better quality
Yes.
as well too.
Yeah.
I think that was a big piece of our harvest this year, was just being so extremely wet and drying down corn that just you had to dry because it wasn't drying down.
It bottlenecked everybody up.
Very much so.
I know when we harvested the Walton, Indiana plot, we had to actually hunt around to see where to bring it because
Yep.
everybody was bottlenecked up on the drying.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to circle back just for a minute as you guys are talking about building back soil health for next year and just what you guys are doing on your side and kind of correlating that to the grain side of things, because I think this is really a time of year where we need to focus on going forward and how we can mitigate with what we did this year and learn from this year, I think, in a lot of different ways, but yet prepare for the following years. And I think our Freedom programs do that extremely well. We've talked about those before. I know a lot of you have enrolled bushels in those programs before. I think they're phenomenal just in terms of diversification. A lot of you with 401k plans or retirement funds, I mean, it's just a way to diversify, just like you would in those accounts, to just manage risk overall for your operation. So we've got those for 2020, 2021. Get in touch with your grain buyer on those. We'd be happy to help you out. That enrollment deadline is December 19th, so we need to get those all enrolled for sure before Christmas. I mean, that deadline is the 19th, and we would probably take one day there for the 20th and get those all taken care of, but we don't want you to miss that opportunity here going forward from the Freedom side of things. So a big date there, December 19th in our side of the business to really keep an eye on. Talk with your account rep. We want to look at that overall portfolio, wherever your risk exposure is, and maybe lay off some of that risk going into 2020 and 2021. So I think that's all we've got for you today. We wish you all a Merry Christmas. That is the last episode here for 2019. Looking forward to the continued business and relationships here in 2020. And thank you for everything that we've been able to work together on here in this crop year. So thank you.